Here's a little disclaimer before the video starts.
What is up, guys? It is TheCitrusPanda here today, and today I'm coming at you with a review for Kids on the Slope, also known as Sakamichi no Apollon. Let's do this. Alright, so if you're here for a recommendation, get out of here right now. You got it. You got my recommendation. It's in like my top 5 favorite anime, possibly top 3. It's a really good show. But you might ask, why do I like this show so much? Well, one of the reasons is because it is a coming-of-age story, which, if done correctly, can be really good. If done wrongly, it could be pretty bad, but with this, it's pretty good. So what do I think you need for a coming-of-age story? Since a coming-of-age story is basically a window of time with either one or multiple characters, hopefully multiple characters, because if you're not a fan of one, you can kind of relate to another or whatever. Coming-of-age shows in general have the kind of merits of being able to be relatable. Although this isn't like a big thing for me, like I don't need to be like, oh, I'm relating to that guy right there in that show, but it's just interesting that you can. It's like a plus for the show and this genre. Now, Kids on the Slope, what makes it even more interesting is the setting, and we'll get into that a little bit. Now, the setting of this show takes place in the 1960s. If you want an exact date, I can't be 100% sure, because you can kind of get an idea. I'd say it takes place from about 1966 to like 1969, or about 1965 to 1968. The reason I say this is because about halfway through the show, episode 6 or 7, Pops, one of the main characters, well, one of the side characters, Pops is in mourning, quote-unquote, for John Coltrane, or Jonathan Coltrane. And if you know who he is, he's a famous jazz musician back in the good old days, whatever. But he died in 1967, so at that point in the series, they were at 1967. Later on in the show, not too many episodes after, I'd say 10 or 11, I don't think it was 12. There's a calendar in the background. It says 1968. So we can assume that it goes about this span, and then towards the end to there's some more time added on. But what I'm saying is that the setting for the show makes it pretty great. It's in the era that jazz was pretty popular, but also rock and roll is starting to kind of emerge as something that was really popular, even in places like Japan. Now, the idea of having a basic story centered around this awesome setting and good characters is something that just is spot on. So who are these mystery characters that make it so good? Well, you got Art Blakey on the drums, you got Lee Morgan on the trumpet, you got Jimmy Merritt on the bass, and you got Bobby Timmons on the piano. How can you go wrong? I'm just saying that if anybody got those references, you're awesome. And if you didn't, then that was my jazz joke of the day. Our main characters consist of Kaoru, who's on the piano, who, by the way, is referred to by a different name from almost everybody in the series. Call him Bon Ni-chan, call him Kaoru, call him Nishimi-kun. I don't care, and he certainly doesn't care. Heck, call him Thelonious Monk for all I know. You thought I was done with the jazz references. We've got Pops on the bass, Centauru, who plays the drums. We got Brother Jun, or Jun-ni. We got, he plays a trumpet, and Ritsuko and Yurika, and these are kind of love interests of the show. And that's pretty much the span of the characters. I mean, there's some side ones, but those are the main ones. And even people like Pops, and they don't really play that big of a deal, but I'm just saying that they're part of the jam sessions. Essentially, you'll get parts of a story and just progressing throughout the entire high school career of these, mostly focusing around Kaoru and Centauro. So they focus around these two people, but also at the end of every few episodes, you're treated to a very well-animated jazz session, and this is just really awesome. Like, I don't know a lot about playing instruments, but from what I've heard online and from what I see from the show and from what I understand, it's very, very accurate. like a lot of music shows in anime, like they're just strumming on the guitar or they're just hitting a drum set, you know. But in this show, like they hit the cymbal and the music plays the cymbal. Like that's how it works, and it's really interesting. Now the soundtrack for this show is just phenomenal. It is just great. It is basically what I would consider one of the best original soundtracks for a show I've ever watched. Now, a lot of it, granted, isn't exactly original, like, for real, because some of them are covers of famous jazz songs. We got, like, Moanin' from Art Blakey and the Jazz Messengers, My Favorite Things, which I don't know who originally made that, but I think it's, like, a lot of different people kind of had that song, but, essentially, it's a really good musical show, and you would expect this, because it's a show that focuses on music a lot, so that's really good. Now, with the characters, and with the music, and with the setting, this all adds up to this big cluster of just good to watch material. Now, it's 12 episodes as well, so it's not like you have to commit to some really long anime, and I think it would have been maybe better if they had maybe 1 or 2 more episodes. I don't know if that was budget-wise or what, because I did read the manga after watching the anime, and the ending is a little bit rushed, but also, I'd say that from episodes 10 to 12 are just pretty crazy, like the stuff that happens in those episodes. It kind of like goes, a little bit like, not like the quality of the series goes downhill before episode 10, but like it kind of calms down a little bit, and then boom, it just goes, boom, it just explodes, and a bunch of things happen pretty quickly, and that's not bad per se, but they kind of skipped over some important parts in the manga, which I'll go into later. I don't want to spoil anything for you. So, these people are basically going through the motions of friendship and romance and everything that you would expect from this kind of age group. It's really interesting to see just how much they are able to bond through basically music. Like, they also bond through other methods, but like Centaur and Kaoru become really close friends from music alone. Like, it brings people together. I think that's a general concept of music. It can bring a group of people together, make them pretty close. And even as the story progresses and people kind of move on with their lives, it's like these are still memories that they'll always remember. Now, this is where I'm going to get into some spoiler territory, so if you don't want those spoilers, get out of here now. We're going to be talking about some in-depth things. Let's go. So, what I'm talking about is people moving on in the show. Not people dying, per se, because people don't die in the show, really. Like Brother June and stuff, the whole kind of backstory that he got was pretty interesting. He was part of these rallying movements. He got a little bit too far in. He dropped out of college. His father disowned him. He came back and pretty much was just a lowlife. And that he kind of bounced back throughout the series, but he also moved on. He moved back into Tokyo with getting a writing job. And, towards the end of the series where Centaur has to, well, he doesn't have to, but he decides to just leave the town they used to live in, and nobody really knows where he went. And Kaoru ends up going off to Tokyo for college, and then you've got all these characters that used to be in one spot and had a lot to do with each other, but now they've all moved on in different directions. The only people that really are going to be there anymore are Pops and Ritsuko, which Pops is Ritsuko's father, so that makes sense. I think this symbolizes just the fact that no matter how good any given point in your life seems, the entire thing can just change really, really quickly, and just by a single event or something. Centaur's dad moved back in, and he couldn't really deal with that because he had been there whenever he was there before, and he just wanted to move away. And not only that, but then he crashed his motorcycle with his little sister on the back, which just made the situation even worse, so he left. Junichi was going to leave anyway, and Kaoru had to go to med school in Tokyo. So, effectively, the whole entire band of people that made up the entire cast of this show just moved on. The only person who really, I'd say, got a happy ending, maybe, Like as far as like towards the end, everything is it all wraps up towards the end. But I'm talking about before the time skip. The only people that really got a happy ending would maybe be Junichi and Yurika, because they go to Tokyo together, so like they actually live together there. But everybody else just kind of moves in different directions, so you never know where they are. But as the story progresses towards the ultimate end that it goes with, a lot of the loose ends don't really get tied up. Yurika, you do meet her, and you can note that she's pregnant by the end of by the 8-year time skip. So that happened, but there's not much else you learn, because Ritsuko doesn't even really get any dialogue at all towards the end, so you learn nothing about her. And Centaur and Kaoru have one last kind of session. Well, not one last. They technically in the manga they live on the same island, so they play. You know, he's playing the song "Monin," which was like one of the first songs they kind of played together, and they were playing it in the cathedral or the church, I guess. Maybe it's not a cathedral. Anyway, it all kind of wraps up towards the end, and it was a pretty happy ending as far as endings go. It was definitely a more open-ended happy ending, because it's like kind of they were all reunited, but you don't know how they were reunited. Like, you don't know their relationship at that point. So I don't know. I mean, overall, I think it was cool that it did stray from the source material a bit, but it also kind of made itself its own thing. You know, the ending was a little bit more interpretive, but maybe that's what the director wanted. And this is coming from the same dude who gave you Cowboy Bebop and stuff, which also has a kind of cool ending to it. Overall, I'd say that it's a really good adaptation of the manga. It's pretty true to what it originally was supposed to be, and it's just really awesome to see a show that kind of tries something new. I mean, you don't really see this very often. I mean, taking place in the 60s, having jazz as a main component, a coming-of-age story, which, I mean, some of those happen nowadays, but they don't seem to be that popular. It's cool to see people just try something new and then actually see it succeed, because that's cool. I always like seeing something new. At the end of the day, all I can say is that this show is one that I would really recommend, and I'm actually even inclined to say you could probably just buy it as well, because it's actually one of those shows that's not super expensive. For 12 episodes on Blu-ray, it's like $30, which means you might want to watch it online. I'm not gonna say too much about that. I mean, you know, if you want to do that, you could also download it offline. I hear they're having some pretty good sales on some certain websites, but you know, what I'm saying is that it's one of those shows that is really good that you'll want to rewatch it. And in general, I'd say it's a show that's definitely worth a watch, and then possibly a watch in the future as well, because watching it my second time around, I learned a lot more about the characters and just, each, how the setting works and everything. I didn't even know that it took place in this, like, the late 60s until I kind of made some connections with the events that were happening in the world at the time. And overall, I would say, go watch this show. Do yourself a favor. And if you don't want to, well then, learn how to play some jazz on the piano. I don't know. Until next time, see you later.